Hey everyone, welcome to Church Brand Guide. My name is Michael Prasad. In this presentation, I'm going to show you branding, like how to rebrand your church so that you get the most out of it. You know, a lot of churches think that branding is about a logo and maybe some colors and fonts, but branding is so much more than that. So I want to unpack what that is, like what really is branding and why does it make a difference for your church? And the truth is, it's about this. People don't know why they need your church. And if a church can focus on creating a brand, they're really focusing on letting people know why your church is important to them. Because today, people are driving by your church probably every weekend, every Sunday, and they have no clue what's going on the inside of it, and they don't even care. But if they knew, if they only knew what was happening on the inside, the message that you have and the hope that you have for them, then they would pull over and they would stop and they would come in. What I want to help you do is create a brand, a perception that allows people to see why you're important to them so that they decide they're going to come and check you out. And that's really what this is all about in the next few minutes as we start to present, as I begin to unpack this presentation. Actually, it's probably going to take about 30 to 45 minutes to unpack all of it. So buckle in. Let's do this. We'll jump right into it. I'm going to do a screen share right now and we'll jump right into this presentation about branding. So, Church Brand Guide, we're here to help churches brand. We specialize in helping churches brand. The presentation that I'm getting ready to share with you is actually something that I've presented several times at different conferences that I've been to. And it's always been a really well received presentation that has created a lot of aha moments as church leaders begin to understand what it means to create a brand with their church. And we're going to cover three areas really. The why. Why is branding important? The what, like what is the strategy that is working? And I want to show you that strategy. In fact, that's probably going to be the great takeaway from this presentation. Once you see the strategy, it'll start to make sense. So stick around for that. And then I want to get to the how. How do we implement it? Once we have a good, clear idea of what our brand is, how do we begin to implement it? So then we're going to be talking about logos. We're going to be talking about websites, colors and fonts, those type of things. So that'll come towards the very end where we'll take a look into actually how does this work? Like how do we use this strategy and implement it to create those elements for our church. So brand is about getting clear. Step one is that we have to get clear about who we are and about who we serve. So once we are clear about who we are, who we serve, our target audience, we can then go to step two, which is to create the right experience. But we don't want to get this out of order. We want to make sure we are clear. And then from there, we create the right experience, both online, we're talking about our website, our social media, also in person. When we're doing our greeting or our parking lot, our lobby experience, that needs to be the experience that is in line with the branding that we come up with. And then finally, a brand needs to have a way to attract people. So a way that we get new people to come in, great brands of any kind in church world or even outside of church world are brands that are able to attract new people to come in and experience the product they have, the service they have. And then once they come, it's about getting buy-in. How do you then get them to take that final step to buy into the product, the service that you have? So this is just a different perspective on looking at your church. From a spiritual dynamic, I feel like you probably have it nailed down. And this conversation is not a spiritual conversation. It's about a very practical conversation of how do we take who you are and make it really simple for people to understand. Because when they understand quickly, that's when they'll choose to buy in, to be a part of what the church is doing, because they can understand it. When you confuse people, you lose people. That's where a lot of churches are struggling. So the Bible tells us this in 1 Samuel chapter 16. This is the story of King David being chosen. He had these older brothers. They were all bigger and stronger. The prophet comes and looks at all those guys. And then God says, no, it's not any of them. It's David. And so David comes in from the field. He's the smallest of all the brothers. But God says that's him. And in 1 Samuel chapter 16, the prophet says this: people look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. And again, from a spiritual dynamic, I feel like your church has this nailed down. It probably has this nailed down where you're helping people with their heart condition to get that right by presenting the gospel on a regular basis. But there are two statements here that are being made, and both of them are true. Man does look at the outside, God looks at the heart. Man looks at the outside. People judge a book by its cover, and what your church looks like matters because it builds trust and authority in their life to where they decide whether or not they're going to come and check you out. We have to make sure we stay relevant with what's going on in our world today. There's this brand that you might recognize, Blockbuster, from back 10, 15, 20 years ago. They were the biggest thing around in their industry when it came to like watching movies and movie rentals. Blockbuster videos, what people did. But Netflix came along and they changed everything. Netflix realized that the technology was shifting and that going to the store on a Friday night is just not a model that's going to continue to happen when you have high speed internet and can just stream what you want. So Netflix invented a streaming system. And of course, today, Blockbuster no longer exists, but Netflix is one of the largest brands in our world today. So we need to recognize what's going on. Church today is different from what it used to be 20 years ago. People don't come to church because they're supposed to. Um, they don't understand why they need a church. So we have to come from that perspective. We have to answer that question in the minds of people of why should I care? Why should I care if there's a church down the street from me? How is that going to benefit my life? And it makes all the difference. Once we understand that, we begin to look at the people that we're serving and we begin to reach them where they are. And that's really what we good brands are able to do. We're able to reach out to people where they are so that we can help them understand why we matter to them. I just go back to our Bible analogy, and Jesus also said, follow me and I will teach you how to fish for people. Fishing is hard. And if you're going to catch fish, you have to know where they are, when they're there, and what the right bait is to use. And that's what branding helps us to do. Helps us to look at the people that we are serving, and it helps us to reach out to them where they are. There's a great book called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. And in this book, he unpacks this narrative that great brands are able to tell, the story that they invite people into. And the big idea is that as a brand, the church, the church, we are a guide in the story. The people we're trying to reach, they are the hero of this story. The hero has some problems in their life and they need a guide to help them. And the guide needs to present them with a simple plan that they can then execute. And if they do, then they're going to see results, great results. So this is the narrative that we want to step into as a church. How do we help the people in our city? How do we help the people in our community become the hero of their story? How do we help them become a great spouse, a great dad, or a great mom? How do we help them become a great business owner? How do we help them succeed in life by setting ourselves up as a guide to help them take the right next steps? That changes everything in how we communicate our church, and it really provides a lot of clarity. If I had to oversimplify it, this is kind of what it looks like. It's about helping people, churches, a good church, any church, your church, if it's a good church, it's about four simple things. It's about God, connecting people with the hope of God and Jesus. It's number two, it's about connecting people with each other into community. Number three, it's about growth, becoming a better version of yourself. And then number four, it's about making a difference, being significant. So those four things are what any good church is going to do really, really well. So what if we can explain our church in four simple ideas? People would begin to say, oh, I get it. And you know what? I need that in my life. What if we had a plan, a method, so we help strangers, people that don't know anything about our church, become a first-time guest? From there, we help them become an attender where they come back. And then we help attenders take their next step to become members. And once they become members, then we help those members become champions. people that help us to fuel the vision and are excited about what they're being a part of. So again, the big idea is that we just need to know what we're trying to do. We need to take aim so we can take the right actions. From there, it becomes very clear what needs to happen with our website, with our logo, with the lobby design that we have, because we have clarity about what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish. And that, again, that's what the branding conversation allows us to do. I go into churches all the time as a consultant, and one of the big things I do is help to clarify the message. I just listen to who the church is, like what are the different ministries, and then I ask questions that are engaging questions that helps the church to get perspective. So we discover a target audience, and then we create a great experience for that audience that we're trying to reach. And let me just say this: an audience, a target audience, is a marketing, it's a business conversation. It's not a spiritual conversation. I think you would agree with me that anybody that breathes is welcome to come at your church. Like, that's a great target audience for any church to have. Our message is for everyone. But when it comes to our marketing and our branding, the more we try to, the more targets we try to hit, the more confusing we are. And that's where a lot of church miss it. They're way too confusing, and nobody feels like, oh, I get it. It's just very vague. So how can we get very clear with the way we present ourselves? And again, that's logo, website, it's the messaging we put out there, it's the lobby experience. How do we get very, very clear to when people show up, they say, wow, I've been looking for this all my life? That's the type of church that I want to help you to create by focusing on what is the brand and then creating alignment with that brand so you grow a bigger and bigger footprint from year to year. If that sounds good to you, the next step I'm going to take you through is our strategy. This is a strategy that growing churches are using. Churches all around the country that are multi-campus, they're running tens of thousands of people. This is what they're doing, or a variation of this. Also, church plans, brand new churches that are starting from zero are using this same strategy to start to get traction very, very quickly in their city. In fact, I'm part of a church plant down here in South Florida, and we came just to help support Pastor Brand, and my family moved down here as part of our brand, our family brand of like, hey, we want to advance the kingdom. We felt like, wow, we should go on a mission to help Pastor Brandon start a new church in South Florida. So we loaded up everything we had, sold our house, moved from Kansas City to South Florida to be part of this church plant. And it's been an amazing journey. It's been very hard, but man, we're so glad we did it. As a family, we're on a mission. And as we started this church in South Florida, we're implementing everything I'm going to talk to you about, and we are seeing tremendous growth, pandemic and all. We have a healthy, thriving church that within the first year, in about the first 7 months, the pandemic hit, shut everything down, but we have a thriving church that's growing even despite all that. And a lot of it is because we're so clear. All credit to God. He's the one that makes this all happen. Of course, it's just his work, and we have been on our knees quite a bit for sure. And he's given us direction so that we can clearly communicate. And that's what I want to share with you. How do we clearly communicate who we are, what the benefits it is that we have to offer the people in our city so that they say, yes, I want to be a part of that. So there's a problem that most churches have, and that they're very confused. People are very confused about why they need our church. The solution is that we need to position our church as a guide to help them become the hero of their story. And this is what great brands do. If we think about the great brands that we recognize, Apple computers, like they're the number one brand in the world right now. They provide themselves as a solution to creative people who want to create great and amazing work, whether that's music or design or photography. They really target those people. Now a whole lot more people use it than just creative people, but as far as their branding and their marketing and their advertising, they're reaching out to these creative people and saying, hey, listen, we get you, we understand you, and we want to help you think different. That's their slogan. It has been their slogan for quite a while. And they say, hey, by the way, you want to use this iPad? It'll help you to be a great artist. If you think about it, when you buy an Apple product, it comes in a white box, it's just blank. And really what they're trying to communicate is this is a blank canvas. Go use it, become an artist. paint a great picture, do something amazing with it. That's really what the brand is for Apple. And we need to figure out what is our narrative. How is our church going to help people? How are we going to relate to people to help them know this is why we are important for your life? Again, in the book Story Brand, it really unpacks this idea. How do we be a guide that presents a plan? And the plan has to be simple. It cannot be 23 steps to whatever. It has to be like 3 steps, maybe four steps. That's it. It's got to be very simple. We can't confuse people. If I try to explain what a church is, I could tell you, I don't know, 118 things about a church, but that's not what they need. They just need it to be very, very simple so they understand how we can help them become successful in their story. So our starting point is to define our target audience. And again, a target audience is more of a mindset. How do people think that would come to our church and say, I love it here? I'll give you a couple of examples. And let me start here with this is our target audience for the church down here in South Florida. His name is Chris. This is an avatar that we've created. So it's a marketing trick that a lot of marketing companies use to help them guide their decisions. So we've done the same thing. We just created Chris and we said, this is who Chris is. He's got kids under 18. He's married. He's a business professional. He lives in Broward County in South Florida. He's seeking direction and purpose for his life. So this is Chris. He's got some debt. He's anxious about some of that. So we're unpacking it. And then as we make decisions as far as how do we communicate our church, we just say, hey, what does Chris need to know about being part of our church? And then it helps to guide that presentation to Chris. I'll give you a couple of tips. Brands that are successful, church brands that are successful, are brands that are a little bit more masculine than they are feminine. So men need to feel comfortable at a church so that they decide they want to come back. It's harder for us to reach men to get them to engage and come back. So we need to make sure our brand makes them feel comfortable. So when they show up in person, it just looks like someplace that they would want to go to. Now, our marketing typically is going to engage with women. So our ad that we put out on Facebook or Instagram, that should be geared a little bit more towards women because women are going to be more likely to respond to it. But when they show up in person, we should use branding elements, a logo, the website that are a little bit more masculine in how they're designed. Even the lobby experience should be a little bit more masculine in how it's designed. In fact, let me jump over here. I just want to help you as much as I can. So hopefully this is very practical to say, hey, this is what you need to be thinking about. It doesn't mean like it's the only thing to do, but this is the way we need to start thinking. So this is a picture of Vibrant Church, the church we're down here, I'm with down here in Florida. So you can see in some of the displays that we have in the facility that we're using colors and fonts and graphic treatments that look a little bit more masculine in how we present ourselves. So that's what I mean. The website should be a little bit more masculine as well in how it's presented. So this is the website for Vibrant Church. Doesn't mean that like we're using pink. Pink is a South Florida thing, so that's one of our brand colors, and that's okay. It relates to our South Florida culture. But the rest of the website, you see, we're using fonts and colors and graphic treatments that are leaning more masculine. So again, I hope that really helps to unpack what I mean by that. And again, great churches are able to attract men who want to be a part of the church. And then that way you have the whole family that's engaged in the church. And that's going to help you quite a bit to get the whole family. And then great churches, tip number 2 with the target audience, try to target people that have kids. Those are more likely, those people are more likely to stick around for a long time because their kids are involved. So great churches, growing churches are really good at reaching kids, like having a great kids ministry and communicating that well. That's just going to help you to grow. If you want to grow your church, reach more people. Young families are kind of the core. They stabilize everything. You get single adults, you get senior adults, you get single or couples without kids. You get everybody else if you're able to create a great nucleus of a family with young kids. I'd say 18 and under is a great little parameter for that. So that's tip number two. Hopefully that helps. Tip number one, again, was lean a little bit more masculine in your branding. Tip number two was to target that young family. That's going to help you get further faster as you begin to create a brand that's attractive to people. All right, so let's jump right into the plan. So part of our strategy is step number one, to define our audience. So we just went through that process. Step number two is to provide them with a plan. So we have to, as a guide, have a plan. If I were to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro, I'll hire a guide to help me do it. And a guide has to have empathy so that he doesn't just leave me. He has to know that like I haven't done this before, and that's why I'm hiring him and to help me out. And he also has to have authority. Like I just need to know that he knows the way, like he's been there, done that, to where I'll actually trust him to guide me. So as a church, we need to have empathy and authority in the way we communicate. We have empathy in saying, hey, we're people just like you. We're made up of people just like you. So we want to communicate that. So some churches might communicate that by the way they dress. Maybe they don't wear suit and ties because their audience wouldn't relate to that. They don't have a suit and tie, maybe. That's just one idea. I'm not saying every church should do that. Some churches should. Some churches shouldn't. There's churches that are trying to reach business people that, hey, a suit and tie, you should do that, because their dynamic is to try to reach people that would relate to that. Authority is another thing that we want to step into. Authority, basically, we all have it. It's scripture. When it's just not a great idea that we've come up with as a church to say, hey, you should live your life like this. We're relying on ancient scripture that is proven. So that's one way of authority. Another form of authority is maybe you've served the community for a long time. You can lean into that. Hey, we've been here. We've done amazing things in this community. We want to help you as well. So that's part of the authority that you can provide for your audience as you begin to communicate that. So Chick-fil-A is a great brand that we all know and love, and they do this empathy and authority really well. In fact, their brand is all about how do we add as much value into every experience that our customer has. Like that's literally the brand. How do we add as much value to our customers? So when you go through the drive-through at Chick-fil-A, you see these people like out in the line walking through, taking your order on an iPad because they're trying to add value. They're trying to take your order so they can process you through the line faster. And we all appreciate it. If you've ever been to Chick-fil-A, man, you really appreciate that. There's so much more fast than a Wendy's or any other brand that we might think about in general, because they're trying to add as much value as possible. So a good guide is able to communicate who they are and the value they provide by using this three-step formula. Again, branding is so much more than a logo. I hope you're getting that. We have to figure out first, what is the strategy that we're trying to put together? Once we have our strategy, that's when we can start to communicate that very, very clearly. So our strategy is going to start by defining what is the problem that we are solving. The problem comes first, and then we're going to communicate what is the solution that we have, and then what is the result that people can expect. So this is the formula for how do we communicate the value we provide. And again, after this, we'll talk about logos, but I don't like to design until I first know these things. So I know for sure that I'm designing in the right direction. So I'm going to give you four great solutions that your church is going to be great at producing, that will make you matter in the minds and of the people you're trying to reach. So every good church can do these four things. The first, let's start with the problem side of it. The problem number one, people feel like they're not good enough. The solution we can provide as a church is hope. Your church can lean into that. Maybe the result, the language that we can start to use is something like experience your best life, something along those lines. So we just have to have common language that we can put out there that people say, wow, yeah, that's it. That's what I need in my life. So again, hopefully you can see how this formula starts to put together a way for us to communicate our value so people know why we matter to them. They know why they need us. Okay, number two, people feel like I'm all alone. Your church is good at community. So what if we put together a message that says, grow stronger together? Something like that. Again, it doesn't have to be that. It could be something like that. Or better together, or you belong here. Something that speaks to the idea of community. That's what's going to result in people saying, yes, I need that church. Uh, Problem number three, I'm wasting my life. They feel like I'm wasting my life. Your church is good at purpose, helping people discover their purpose. Maybe one of the ways you can say that, the solution is to live a better story. In fact, that's our church's tagline down here in South Florida. We want to help people live a better story. We're talking about purpose, and it's working. People are really connecting with us. They're resonating with that idea of like, hey, I want to live a better story than the story that I'm living now. And problem number four, people feel like I'm not making an impact. I'm not making an impact in my life, and they want to. So our solution is significance. Like, we get to help people find significance. They serve on our teams, they do local outreach or global missions. Their life makes a difference. So what if we said that solution, make a difference? You can make a difference here. So again, wow, what clarity this is for most churches, for us to communicate to the people that are outside the walls of our church. They understand why they need our church, why they should care about our church. This is going to make a huge difference for you. Again, I serve with churches all the time to help them walk through this process. As a consultant, from an outside perspective, I come in, I meet with the teams, and this is just always an aha moment for people that I work with in the church world. So hopefully that's doing the same thing for you. I believe that it is, and I hope you can take the right actions to change things up a little bit. If you do need some help, let me know. Reach out to me, and at Church Brand Guide, there's a contact form there, and I'd love to connect with you on a phone call, see if I can help you out with this. Maybe I can come in. And then what Church Brand Guide does is that we help you put this together, this strategy together, and then we produce the logo, the website, the signage, the materials that you need, so to then see this actually come into fruition, to where people are walking through environments or clicking online through the right experience to help them understand why your church matters to them. So let's talk about our plan. Every good guide has a plan. And again, it's really simple. Every good church will do these four things. This is it. Just four things. That's all we need to communicate to people outside our walls about what our church is. Number one, it's about God. It's about having hope that there is a God that loves them. It's God. Number two, it's connect. It's connection into community, finding a place where they belong. Number three, it's about growth, becoming a better version of themselves, becoming better, leveling up their life. And number four, significance, where they get to make a difference with their life. Just communicate those four things. This is a winning strategy, again, that many churches are tapping into right now. We actually found this. This is from the ARC network of churches. It's the best plan that I've seen of any church out there, and it works really, really well to help these churches to grow. So again, in branding world, we just need to create a very simplistic way to let people know who we are. And this is the best way that I've seen to communicate it. This is our strategy. Don't worry if you have values that are different than this. It's okay. Strategy and values are different. You can keep the values that you have and use this strategy as a communication strategy to help people understand and to take next steps. So it's not conflict. It's not you have to replace it. You have both. Your values make you unique. The strategy makes you clear so people can understand. Every good church is going to have a tagline. A tagline is a one-line statement that helps people understand the value you provide for them, the promise that you have for them. This is called a brand promise. Like, what is the promise? If people do what you're asking them to do, what is the promise that you have for them? So that's what we call a tagline. And again, this is kind of hard to work through, but I work with churches to help them go through this process. I believe with the information I'm giving you right now, you can start to work through this process as well, and do this and get something clear for you. So this is how it starts to come together. The God piece, that's the weekend service. So we need to create a tangible way to measure each of these four areas. This is going to be huge in our marketing. So we need to drive people to next steps. So people take next steps. and they're able to ultimately get to the place where we want them to experience what we're promising, right? So our weekend service is the God piece. Um, Small groups is the connect piece. So small groups could also be like a Sunday school, or it could be like groups that meet during the week at somebody's house. Like any smaller gathering, about 12 people or so, that's a small group. That's huge for relationships to happen. It's a great strategic move. If your church isn't doing it, it needs to do it, because that's how we close the back door. When people disappear without us knowing why or where they went or when they left, the small group solves that. It's a great strategic move to have small groups in your church. Growth, discipleship, that's some sort of discipleship process that has a membership in it, like where you become a member of the church. This is super important. This is where, when you go to Amazon, you're looking for that thing on Amazon, that widget or whatever, and you do all this research, you find it, and you're excited, it's a good price. Then you click the buy now button and you get it, right? So what if Amazon didn't provide the buy now button? Super, super frustrating. That'd be terrible. Well, many churches aren't, that's exactly what they're doing. They provide a great experience, and then there's no way for somebody to say, yes, I want to be a part of it. So what if we have a simple process that allows people to grow, part of a discipleship process, and one of the steps in that process is to become a member of the church. It's a very simple idea, but it works. Again, the ARC network of churches does this extremely well. We've experienced it in our very young church, under 2 years old, where we're over 200 people on a weekend in a very, very short amount of time in a brand new city, because we're implementing this and we're seeing results happening from it. So include that in there. There's a lot more I can tell you about it, but that's the basic idea. I also have a membership area of my website. If you work with me, I know there's a lot of ideas here that we're unpacking. So because of that, I've designed a member area on the website that allows me to unpack a lot of this stuff in greater detail, so that you can walk through, hey, what does a user journey look like for our church? And there's some teaching, a worksheet to help you work through it, some great graphics to help explain it and for you to understand what it is. So anyway, just want to let you know about that. I love the church. I'm passionate about a church. I know the difference the church has made in my life, and I want to serve the church. I want to serve your church as best as I can, so that you're able to get this right. Here's what it looks like for our church down here, Vibrant Church down in South Florida. The problem is in the upper right. People are seeking purpose. The solution is in the lower bottom in the middle there. It says number 2. The solution is to connect in relationship, first with God, then with others. And then our result that we're promising, our brand promise, is in the upper left, number 3. It says, you'll live a better story. So live a better story is our brand promise. That goes in the middle. That's our tagline for our church. And then we have step 1, 2, 3, and 4. The God, please, we call it know God. We want you to know God. It's our weekend services. That's where that happens. Find freedom. Oh yeah, that's where we connect with other people, so we can find true freedom. We take off our masks. We be who we really are. We find freedom in our connect groups. And connect groups for us, they meet during the week at different places. And that's what it looks like. Discover purpose is what we call step 3. Discover purpose. We know people need purpose in their life. So we say, hey, this is a place where you can discover your purpose. We have this thing called a growth track that people go through. In the growth track is a membership application where they can be part of our church. We also tell them about basic beliefs that we have, and invite them to become givers and to serve on a team. And then number 4, we call it Make a Difference. And Make a Difference is about being part of our dream team. Dream team is just a place that you serve in our church, whether it's on a weekend or out in the community. That's any of those things are a dream team. We're just asking people, hey, we'd love for you to be part of a dream team, because we know God has put a dream in your heart. When you're part of a team, we're able to help you become or make that dream a reality. So we put people in areas of their strengths. If they're not good with kids, we don't put them in kids ministry. We put them somewhere else. If they're great with production, they love behind the scenes stuff, that's where they go. So we want to help their dream become a reality. So we call it a dream team. So hopefully that gives you a picture of what you want to head towards as you put together a brand strategy. Again, I spent a lot of time on this because it's extremely important. Too many churches just say, hey, we're going to rebrand, and they design a nice little logo, a new website, but there's no intentionality. There's no narrative or story that they're trying to tell through it. So it's very empty, and they don't see results, and they don't see people showing up, and they don't see people joining the church. Um, but I want to change that. Like, I used to design those things just to look pretty. But then what I realized is that, man, I really want to move the needle for churches. I want to move the needle for your church. So then I started to create a lot of this strategy process that we're talking about. And I started to walk churches through it, because I used to work with companies that would do this. Like, they spent tens of thousands of dollars, $50,000 to rebrand their company. And they go through all of this. And then churches wouldn't do it. Like, churches are just like, oh no, we just need a logo that looks nice, that, is red because I like red. And then companies are over here spending all this time and energy and effort and consultants and all this stuff to get this stuff right, because they want to sell a new pencil or whatever it is that they produce. And I was like, man, there's a gap there. The church needs to know about this stuff so that the church can get this right. And I want you to get this right so that you do produce logos and websites. But man, there's a great story, a great narrative there that people can relate to. There's a great message there that people say, yes, I need that in my life. So again, I hope that strategy was an aha moment for you, and really helps you to start this process right where you are with your team. So let's jump into the final idea here. This is the big one where we're going to talk about church branding. And what I want to do too, as we go through this process, branding, and I'm talking about logo, website, we're going to talk through details on some of this stuff. It's going to be quick, so I'm just going to take about 10 or 15 minutes to do it. So don't worry, it's not going to be crazy long. But as we go through, I want to let you know cost. Like, what can you expect to pay for this so you get it right? So I'm not talking about, hey, you're the person in high school that goes to your church that knows how to use Photoshop. I'm talking about legit, like, get this right. The thing, and I would encourage you to get this right. Again, companies spend tens of thousands of dollars to get this right because they know it'll make them profitable. How much more important is it for your church to get this right so that you can get people in the doors to hear the message that we have that can transform their lives? Churches spend tens of thousands on lighting and sound. And we also need to look at our brand in the same perspective. Like, if people don't come to our church, then it doesn't matter how great our lighting or our sound is. Like, let's invest in the right areas. And this is, again, I want to give you pricing so that you understand, like, what does it look like to get this right? How can I budget for this and make sure we get this right as a church? So the logo is the first part that we want to do. It's the tip of the iceberg when it comes to a brand. It's the part that everybody sees, and we have to make sure we get the logo right. If your brand is this great, excellent brand that you have a lot to offer, but your logo is this really cheap looking thing, there's a disconnect and people lose trust. And brands build trust. Once you build trust, that's when people say, yes, I'll come check you out and I'll come buy into what you're doing. We need to build trust. That's what we're trying to do as we establish our brand. So there's different types of logos. I want you to understand this. So when you look to get a new logo design done for your church, if that's something you need to know what to look for, how to give direction. So again, I'm going to give you very specific direction on what I've seen work, as I've designed dozens and dozens, hundreds of church brands. And I just want to give you some direction about what to look for. So there's the word mark. So Disney is a good example of a word mark. The word Disney is the logo. A combination mark has a like an image plus the words. It's a combination of two. So Adidas is a good example of that. There's a letter mark like GE. G and E is the logo, like GE. So that's a word or a letter mark. And then there's a symbol or an icon. So the NFL shield, like, that's a good example of a symbol. The shield is the logo. It doesn't have like another thing with it. It's just, that is the logo. Now for churches, what I recommend is a combination mark. So you have a mark with a word and you can use them together, but then you can also use the mark by itself. It's kind of like Nike. Nike has the swoosh, but it also has the swoosh with the word Nike that you can put together. And that gives them a lot of flexibility for a lot of different reasons. So I like that for churches, a combination mark. Your audience is going to determine the design. You should like it as a church, as the people that go to the church, like you should like the logo, but your target audience, the people that aren't currently part of your church, they should love it. So if we're doing it right, our brand is geared towards people that we want to be part of our church. Really, you can break it down into three categories. Does our brand need to be more classic, modern, or trendy? Classic is going to be for a community that's maybe well established. It's a Christian community. A lot of small towns in rural areas can go with a more classic look. I just worked with a church in Pella, Iowa. The people in Pella, Iowa have been there for a long time. It's a small town, a really amazing town, by the way. You should go visit sometime. They have these amazing windmills all around town. But there's a religious background. There's a Christian background in the area. People just aren't maybe plugged into our church. So the strategy was to create a classic brand that people can relate to, has a religious symbol in it, and there's a cross in it. It looks really good. Anyway, that's kind of what we're going. Modern is kind of the middle of the road. It looks a little bit more corporate, like a business logo, but it relates to professionals. Suburbia is great for this. Cities are good too. Like this is good for cities. It relates to people that are professionals. And then trendy is usually for churches that maybe be aiming for a younger demographic. Maybe they're in a college town, or maybe their presentation of the gospel is just a little bit unique. It's a unique experience. So maybe you want to go a little bit more trendy in how you present yourself. Again, my recommendation over the years of doing this, I've done all of them. But my recommendation is that most churches should probably just be in the middle with modern. So how do you create a logo that isn't too religious, but is relatable to professionals? So again, if we're trying to target our audience that has young kids, they're professional, then this is going to be a good approach. Hey, by the way, another tip about your target audience, this is probably tip number 3 if I'm tracking it right. If you target professionals that are Christians, you're going to go further faster. Some churches, this sounds great. Like they say, hey, our target audience are lost people that don't know anything about Jesus or church. And that's good. Like we should do that. But as far as our marketing and our branding, it's strategic to target Christians that just aren't engaged in a church. So if you were to run a Facebook ad, the most effective Facebook ad is going to be the ad that's run with the target audience of people that listen to Christian music. And then people that relate to that will see it and then say, oh yeah, I need to get plugged into a church, I'll come. But if you try to target like, I don't know, atheists in my city with your ad, it's not going to work. Like they don't even care. So the strategy is with our marketing and advertising, how do we target Christians that just aren't engaged somewhere, but they have a belief in God and Jesus and that type of thing. And then how do we get them to our church? And then from there, how do we send them back out and relationally have them engage with the atheist or whoever that is in their world that doesn't know anything about Jesus, the church, because it's only through a relationship that's going to happen. So as a church, like let's not waste our money on an ad, thinking that an ad is going to cause somebody that doesn't know Jesus or care about Jesus to then come to our church. So again, that's very oversimplified, but I hope that helps you. Hope it saves you on your budget and is able to make you a little bit more effective in how you create a brand. So again, the logo is the most important part of your brand. It's the tip of the iceberg. Need to make sure we get this right, the right colors, the right fonts. So those it matters. People judge a book by its cover. If you're trying to create an excellent experience for people and your logo looks terrible, there's a disconnect and people won't come. So make sure you get your logo right. Get it done by a professional. You can expect to pay $2,500 for a good logo design. Again, that's just a rough estimate. Might be more, might be a little less. But if you want to get it right, and I'm just talking about the design, I'm talking about the branding guide that comes with it. So you have fonts and colors defined and graphic treatments defined with it. Like do it right. Make sure it's good to go for a really long time. Again, you're probably looking to spend about $2,500 to get that right. Let's move on. So with our marketing, we need to have a strategy to turn strangers into guests. and then guests into attenders, attenders into members, members into champions. Okay. So let's just keep that in mind. And let's also keep in mind that God can do whatever he wants to do. He can turn a stranger into a champion if he wanted to in one day. But as part of our strategy, how do we have something in place that allows people to take their steps? So the website is a good church website. It's going to help the stranger become a first-time guest. A good church social media helps the stranger become a first-time guest. So our digital marketing, our digital footprint should be geared towards strangers to help them become first-time guests. So when we oversimplify it like that, we can make really good decisions. So the Tuesday night usher meeting should not be posted on social media because that's not going to help a stranger come to our church. So let's communicate that somewhere else. It shouldn't communicate it on the website either. That creates a lot of clutter. How do we create a really, really great experience on our website? Because people go to the website first. If they're coming to check out your church, they're going to pick up their phone, they're going to type in your URL, and they're going to check you out. And then they're going to decide if they're going to come or not. So let's make sure we get it right, create the right experience for the right job, the right step in this process. Our street to seat, our lobby is what's going to help the first time guest say, yes, I'm going to come back. So we need to make sure we get that right. So again, I want to give you a framework that'll help you really unpack this. With our website, with all of our marketing, make sure we're genuine. Take real photography with your church, of the people in your church. That's what you want to present. So when the person sees you online, they show up in person, there's an alignment there. It's exactly what they expected. That will build trust. With your social media, there's a lot that we can talk about, but here's just a few simple guidelines. Engage relationally with your social media and have a budget. You need to spend in order to reach. That's just kind of the game right now. You have to spend in order to reach people. You can't just post stuff and expect people to see it. You have to at least boost the post or run an ad. So create a budget. I'd say $150 a month minimum is a good budget. That gives you about $5 a day to work with. And that's a good starting point. Number two, attract people using ads, landing pages, and emails. Landing pages is something that's on your website. So your Easter service might have a landing page with information just about the service. So that's kind of what a landing, it's a special page just for something that's happening, so that you can run an ad on Facebook, point directly to the landing page, and then people get exactly what they need. And then email is huge. Don't forget email. Social media changes the rules all the time. So you never know who's going to see it. But if you send out emails and people get it, it goes into their inbox. They might never read it, but that's okay. The strategy is to be in their inbox. You want your church name to pop up every week in their inbox. So send out emails and make sure the emails are good. So if they do click on one of them, there's some good content in there that'll help them. So when they have something in their life, they're like, man, what do I do? Your name just needs to pop up in an inbox so that they can have the opportunity to click on it. Don't give up on emails. Businesses know that emails are important. In fact, the size of a business email list determines the value of a company. So that's how important it is in the business world. So make sure you build your email list and make sure you use it. Once a week is a great rhythm. Send out emails, helpful emails. Again, it's not the Tuesday usher meeting. This is how you can get out of debt. It's like really valuable information that people will want. Number three, create opportunities such as events before asking people to come to a service. It's hard for somebody to come to a service as their first step. So how can you have maybe it's an Easter egg hunt, maybe it's a harvest party, maybe it's a Christmas musical, whatever it is that your church is good at doing or wants to do, create 2-3 times a year where people can come to your church without having to come to a service. Again, that's just a strategy. Then on social media, like you just want to run ads to it, really light it up. And that'll be a great way for people to get introduced to your brand. Be authentic. So authentically address the barriers people have with coming to your church. So answer the questions. Like, what do I wear? How long is the service? People have all these questions on the inside when they think about what is a church. So answer those questions with your social media, and that's going to help you to reach more people and engage with more people. The website is an extension of that. Most church websites are way too confusing. Remember, confusion is the enemy. Keep it simple. Help that first-time guest, that stranger that's just checking you out for the first time to make a decision to come to a service, whether it's online service or in-person service, whichever way you're doing it. Just that's the goal. How do you create a great experience? And it's so if you can imagine, that means the website needs to be really simple. Can't have a whole bunch of stuff on it. Just has to have the right things on it. Kids ministry is very important. Make sure kids ministry is on there, especially for our target audience that we said we're trying to reach. The about page is extremely important. Make sure you have a great about page. I'm going to show you that here in just a minute. But your website needs to have a call to action. So make sure it's very clear. You want them to come to service. That's the call to action. That's going to help them take their next step and know what their next step is that you're trying to get them to do. Give them one thing to do as much as possible on the website. Have the design be responsive. An updated website that works really well on a phone is very important. Actual photos on the website. Try to not use stock photography. You want to be genuine so that people trust you. Easy to find visitor information. So let's make sure that we don't bury the service time and the address. Even have like a whole page dedicated just to the first time guest. This is kind of an example of what the homepage needs to look like. There's a lot here, but there's definitely a right way and a wrong way to build a website. I help churches as part of my branding process with Church Brand Guide to create a strategy that we're all clear on, we all agree on, and we say, hey, this is it. This is what we're trying to do. And then from there, design the logo, the website with just the right elements to get people to show up. I love doing it. It's a lot of fun, and there's definitely a skill to it. I'd love to help you out if that's something you want me to do. I have a workshop that I do to help churches walk through everything we're talking about here today. The workshop allows me to come in and meet with your team just virtually on a Zoom call. I guide you through the strategy process, and then my team, I will design your logo, your website, and just make sure it's right. And we also do signs on your property just to make sure it's all done right. So your digital experience looks great, and when people show up, your lobby experience looks great, and it's all in line with the strategy. Your logo looks great. It's on everything. It's the right logo. It tells the right story. I love what I get to do. So if I can help you reach out, make sure you reach out to me. I'd love to connect with you and tell you a little bit more about the workshop. I have a limited amount of spots because it takes me a while to go through it. So if you'd like to sign up and get in on the next one, let me know. The website though, there's certain pages that we need. On the left, you can kind of see those pages. On the right, this the strategy from top to bottom. So the call to action needs to be at the very top. We have to have a clear tagline that helps people know the value it is that we provide. Service times and locations need to be very clear. Also, we need to provide a step 1, 2, 3. Like, what does it look like to come to our church? Well, step 1 is to plan your visit. Step 2 is to pick the service and show up at the service. Step 3 is to go to the connect desk after service so we can give you a free gift. Like, just explain that, because people don't know why they need your church. They don't know what it means to even go to church. Just come from it from that perspective and help them understand. From there, you need a great about page. An about page unpacks really our audience. It's about our audience. It's not about us. Like, again, we're the guide. We're not the hero of the story. So our about page needs to speak to the needs of our audience. The about page is the second most visited page behind the homepage of a church for any church website. So make sure the about page does a great job at unpacking who the audience is and how we serve them. This is an example of an about page, and this is real photos of people in the church. So this is kind of a good look at it all put together. Like, how do we show genuine photos? How do we have messaging that talks about our audience? How do we have photos of like happy results? So smiling faces of the types of people that we're trying to reach. That's what we want on the website. How do we explain, like, what does it look like to visit our church? And really let them know that we want them to visit, and break it down. How's it simple? How do we create a very, very simple way for people to understand, like, hey, we've got nursery and preschool, elementary, we have all these different areas of our church. Discover your purpose, like messaging wise. How do we help people understand, like, this is the value we want to provide? this is another message here. This is a place where you can find community. So again, we're talking directly to their needs and saying this is how we provide it. Your life can make a difference. And then there's a photo right here of somebody that's running one of the sound. Actually, that looks like the video switcher. Then we have our strategy. And as we go down, we have an area for the pastor. Talks about Pastor Brandon, his family, shows his kids. Very relatable. So again, this is very, very strategic when it comes to the about page. And it's what works to get people to say, wow, I could see myself there. Like that's the goal of the website. New people to say, yeah, I could see myself going there. So we're showing a diverse range of people and happy results. The visit page is another page that I want to talk about. So create a whole page about what does it look like to visit the church? Answer the questions. How long is the service? Have pictures, have video, have a virtual video tour of what it looks like to pull up into the parking lot, go into the lobby, and go into the auditorium, the kids areas. Like have a virtual tour. Have photos of different areas of the church so that people understand what the place looks like. So they ultimately say, yes, I can see myself going there and checking it out. Have kids ministry stuff. Again, if we're trying to target that core, group of people with with a young family, have that information right there. Even have a way for people to sign in their kids ahead of time. Like that's all great stuff that we've seen work really well. Now, there's going to be a time where you do need to serve people in the church. So what if you had a page that's like a connect page, whatever you want to call it, and that's where people can get information about the usher meeting or baptism or anything else that they would need after they come for their first visit. So that's another way that we can serve people by having just a section of the website. Just remember this. People that haven't come to your church, your website just needs to be very intuitive so they can find what they need. People that have come to your church, you can tell them how to use the website. You can say, hey, listen, if you need anything, go to the connect page, it's there. You can train people in your church, but you can't train people that have not come to your church yet. So make sure that experience is very intuitive. All right, guys, again, hopefully that helps you. For a website, you're probably looking to spend $3,500 to $5,000 on a good website. That's on a really good platform that'll allow you to scale. So we cost-wise, we've talked about a logo is about $2,500. Strategy, if you get a consultant to come in, you're probably looking at another $2,500. So strategy, logo, website, like that's the main package that you want to make sure you get right if you're going to rebrand your church. And we're probably looking at a roughly $10,000 price point right there to get those things right. To do it right, make sure that it's going to be a tool that's serving your church well, that has the right strategy behind it, and is able to grow with you and grow with your church. Your website is really an employee of your church. You're hiring somebody to present your church 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you're asking them to do a job to get people to show up on a weekend in a service. So it's important that you get the website right. That's the front door. So make sure we do that. Make sure we get it right. And then I'm gonna jump over to our street to seat idea. The fourth piece here behind strategy, logo, website is the street to seat. Like if you have a great website, great social media, and people show up, we need to make sure we get this right. So they have a great experience in the parking lot with signs, in the lobby with signs. Kids areas are marked out clearly, auditoriums marked out clearly. So I'm going to jump over to our photo gallery here. And this is in my member area. If you're one of my clients, I have a member area where I just have a whole bunch of like different resources to help you out. One of my resources is to have photos of different environments. So I want to show you how this plays out. Again, I'm just going to go through the Vibrant Church. This is the parking lot. We have these big signs that are floppy, lets people know, yes, we're open, we're here. By the way, Vibrant meets in a school. And so we have to transform that school into our church every week. So we do that by doing a lot of signs and different things. So again, you can see that the signage needs to communicate your value. People make a decision whether or not they're going to come back the next week within the first 5 minutes. So make sure your signage is excellent, because before they hear the sermon, before they talk to the pastor, they're deciding whether or not they're going to show up next week. So make sure we communicate values, make sure we show them directions, like where the bathrooms are, where's the kids check-in area, what are the values of the church? Like have those on display. People will mosey around and kind of look at a lot of that stuff, and it's determining their decision. Again, a lot of the signs I'm showing you has a more of a masculine feel to it because that's the brand that we want to try to put out there. But we're showing our values, find freedom, discover purpose. Like we want people to understand, like this is what we're all about. So they decide, yes, this is the place for me. I've been looking for this. We have a place for next steps where people can just take those 4 steps that we talked about earlier. And we're just presenting a great logo with great designs and graphics so that we're building trust. We're saying, hey, yes, we know what we're doing and we want you to be a part of it. And then have some great connect cards to kind of support your system there. And then one thing I want to leave you with, tell stories. It's really simple for us to put stories together. It doesn't have to be this big production. There's a formula that's really, really simple, and it's a 3-part formula. So part number 1 is the problem that somebody has had. So their life before Jesus. Step number 2 is, what is your Jesus moment? How'd you meet Jesus? And step number 3, how's life different now? And if you can just get some of those stories collected, that's how we turn people into champions. That's how we create champions within our church and within our brand, by sharing stories all the time. As much as we can, we're just telling stories of life change that's happening within our church. So again, there's 5 areas that we need to make sure we get right. Your signage, so cost-wise, you're probably looking at about $1,500 to get those right. The printing and all that stuff is on top of that. It's probably going to range to maybe $3,000 to get all of it printed, delivered, shipped, all that stuff. So that's kind of added onto our scope of project there. So again, this is a very practical guide of what you need to do to get this right. Get the strategy, get the right logo, get the brand guide that goes with it, the website and the signs, right? Get those things in place if you're going to create a new brand, if you're going to rebrand and you're serious about doing it right. Again, here's the breakdown. Let me just show you one final thing before we close it out. Here's the breakdown of what the cost is. Strategy is about $2,500. Again, this is on average. Different companies do it for different prices. Could be more, could be less. Logo is about $2,500. Again, the logo comes with a brand guide, fonts, letterhead, business cards, those type of things. You just want to make sure you get all those pieces included in that logo project. And get a good designer. Like, make sure they know what they're doing so that you get a great logo. Make sure the logo is designed as a vector. Too many churches have pixel-based logos. It's a mess when you do that. Website, again, on the low end, you're looking at $3,500. Really, it's about a $5,000 website for most churches that are established and really want to have the strategy and the right things in place with the right pages. It's about a $5,000 project. And then your signs, you're probably looking at about $1,500 to have a designer design the right signs with your values and everything included. And then you're probably going to be printing on top of that. And it's probably going to be another $1,500, so maybe $3,000. So for the design portion of everything, you're probably looking at $11,500. So budget that. It's going to be well worth it. Again, you probably spend a lot on your lighting, your sound system, but if nobody's coming, then that doesn't matter. Like, let's just go ahead and make sure people are coming and that life change is taking place, because that's why we exist as a church. So hopefully that price point helps you kind of get that in your mind of what it's going to take. And so you can budget for it. And when you're ready to pull the trigger, you can pull the trigger. Again, I'd love to help you do it. In fact, I have a special offer where I have a branding workshop. Typically, I do have an $11,000 package. I have a $25,000 package, honestly, where I come out, do video, photography, all sorts of stuff. Agencies that rebrand churches, you're probably looking at about $25,000 to go from top to bottom to get it redone. And again, that's just something to be aware of. If you're a bigger church, you've got some resources, you want to do it from top to bottom, get it right. Just kind of keep that in mind. That's kind of what you're looking at. I do have a workshop that will help me guide you through this process in a very efficient way. That's probably the best word for me to use. A very, very efficient way. And I only have 5 spots available for it in the next month. So if you want to get in, jump into my workshop. The price point isn't $11,000. I've brought it down to $5,000. $997. So this is where I, through a Zoom call, will guide your team through the strategy. My team will design your logo. We'll get it right. I just presented a logo earlier today. It was so fun. An amazing church in North Carolina. I just got to communicate that to them. It was a wonderful win for everybody just to see it. It was amazing. So I love what I get to do, and I'd love to do it for you. I'll produce the brand guide that comes with that. It has all your standards in it. We'll get the right website designed for you. And they'll also your signs, like all of it, all the things that we talked about that typically cost upwards of $11,000, $12,000, maybe $15,000. We're going to get it right for you, and you can get it done right now for that price point, $5,997. If you're interested, reach out to me through the churchbrandguide.com website /workshop. Will get you directly to my application to send me a message about the workshop. But churchbrandguide.com is the place to go to get access and to connect with me. I'll get that contact form when you send it in. Hey guys, and also when I see that, we'll get on a phone call. I'll talk with you one-on-one. I'll answer any questions you have, even consult with you about, hey, if you have some quick questions. I'd love to just give you some insights. That's what Church Brand Guide is all about, just to help churches do this better. And then I'll let you know about the workshop as well. And if it's a good fit, then we'll get started. So hopefully you can get one of those spots. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for joining me. Again, my name is Michael Prasad with Church Brand Guide. Hopefully this has been helpful to you. And I believe that as you get more clear, you defeat the enemy of confusion, and more people will come to your church. More life change will take place, and more people will choose to become contributors to the vision that God has given you. And it's going to be amazing. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.